again. So yeah, sounds like you have to work with learn how technology works. So I'm doing my best. Uh, so I'm continuing. Hello first. So um, beginning of the day of any day in your life. So how far you invite into your mind um, to occupy and take a space in your day. Imagine that it's your brain is this this maximum cabinet for all your folders through your life journey. Imagine you have an archive that old folders that still exist there and with the updated ones. Imagine the load that is being put onto your mind just to recap or to start to drive the energy for your day. Imagine that you are keeping specific folders with you uh, at every single day of your start of your life. Of course, these folders can have a significant in your life. It's for protection. It's for to pay attention to something that is repeating or something you would like to move forward with it, or it is like this obsessive compulsive thought that you have to do something. You have to do something, or you have to influence something or impact something, whatever it's people, person, place, whatever. So imagine all these contradictory of folders are within your maximum cabinet of archiving and updating. Imagine that over time, the flexibility, the fluidity, a lots of concepts we have to consider, just to exemplify for simple things, for simple science, how these folders can impact your day outcomes, productivity, performance, whatever you say, direction, decisions, relationships, because of the core, it's the variation of the interpersonal relationship within interpersonal relationships within the human ecological model. So you are always like on constant conflicting state of the old and the present and the future. How far what is more occupying for you is gonna override your central nervous system, your mechanism for adaptation, for modification or adoption, or as I said before, the flexibility, adaptability. Imagine all these mechanisms running on autopilot within without your permission, without uh, you're like, okay, I'm gonna think through it. Once it is filed, it is there. Once the perceptual memory is activated through stimuli, it's internal or external environment, your body takes over and you started to feel this infusion either for restlessness, anxiety, frustration, and I am or happiness, okay, or delightful or ease. But most of the time, as I stated, our brain is 95% is designed for to observe it more, to dwell into the negative stuff. That is the self sabotage. That is the protective mechanisms of the survival brain that activated for thousands of years. So it's like running on autopilot now with the modern life. It is loading the systems with more stress response and activating of the autonomic nervous system, and you are on the go. So imagine all of these old thoughts, these old beliefs, attitudes, motives, intentions, especially intention. So we have to understand whatever drives the behavior, what is the intention and the motive behind it, what function does it serve, who's the beneficiary. We're not in a singular cycle of activation. We are complex, and at the same time there are things are being understood in front of you, and many things we know tiny of the reality and the truth that of the truth of the matter of any incident or event or anything, because the brain or our memory is leaning into what is comfortable, what is relevant. So it is just like comparing the simple factory, comparing the old with the present or the new, and say yes, go, yes, stop. Okay, so for filtration and the consolidation for memory during sleep, and that is when your folders are being determined to be kept for many years, like the hippocampus store negative experiences. This is sort of at the protective mechanism for almost a decade. So your nervous system already it can be activated at any time unless you bring awareness, unless you bring understanding, unless you see what does it serve, what function, who is the beneficiary, what motive and intention, how far the central nervous system is regulated, so the person can have the full attention, because this hinders the prefrontal cortex over time. Stresses by research now, chronic stress, it leads to brain atrophy. So we see the shrinking of the hippocampus, the thinning of the gray matters, the white matters. So the cell bodies and the axonal and the conductiveness and all messaging or the signaling among neurons and the cells are being confused. But no one taught us early, from early age. Yeah, we understand the basics of the subject of the science from early age, but we are not going deeper on molecular and cellular mechanisms, and we understand how behaviors, how each input from the environment impact you over time and bring a whole new person 5-10 years. I see, especially females, because females go through very severe changes and they are subjective to many things that expectations, few, few percent that got the respect, the nurturing, the nurture, few. But the majority of the culture, the majority of the societal, women are an object. They are not human beings. They are object to be used or taken advantage of. This is at multi levels, even from high level education to lower level education. It doesn't matter. It based on the reptilian mammalian brain and the socioculture or socioeconomical makeup of a community or a society, and then the female role is being determined or is being assigned to, and any deviation from this norm, we see many tough stories through generations. So we are not taught these molecular cellular mechanisms of the impact of negative emotion. And my focus in aggression, because it has multiple, it has a big array, as I mentioned before. It's like they mentioned, it's the umbrella, and then it falls under different categories and different diagnoses and different sections of what the frontal temporal lobe dementia, body Lewy body, sorry, Lewy body is the dementia, Alzheimer, and others. So it's categorized, and at the same time, it has its fluidity, or the excitotoxicity load that impact how the body functions, tissue damage, organ damage, and we see even disabilities over time. And all this was emotions, and all this was emotions. So emotions, we don't ignore them. Mostly it's common that women are more emotional on emotional side, and they express their uh, emotional, like this satisfaction in a negative way, while male negative emotions are expressed in more subtle violent way. So it's more physical for male and more verbal for female. So imagine that heaviness of energies, heaviness of high excitatory toxic or excitotoxicity neurotransmitters and enzymes, proteins, and all of this can all flush together onto the central nervous system, stressing all the immune and the brain and the brain and other organ systems. Imagine all this flood. And I am bringing this for as under the Creative Commons for the public, it just like to start dissecting what aggression is and how can it relate to the health and disease. How can we, if you have hypertension, so you experience aggression. Even you are from the aggressor side or the target side. So both there is bidirectional interaction how the body responded to this behavior or this type of over excessive electropiochemical processing. And I don't say it is not the scene, it is what happening inside of you and impacting over time. I said that, like the proactive aggression, it is calculated, it is strategic, and once they focus on the target, it is you can draw a timeline. You can draw a timeline when events happen and how they happen and the outcomes and your body response and the level of stress you are experiencing after that and the impact on the quality of your life. You are going to understand that aggression is the unpublicized weapon in the public, is being used as either to break down or to defend, or a defense mechanism. So it is both sides. So we have to look at it from both the aggressor and that is the perpetrator, and the target or the victim, that is the defense mechanism. Both have a load, impacting the load of the electrobiochemistry toxicity, and the changes even in the personality trait, in the behavior, in the activation of more aggressive or more violent behaviors toward the human beings. We see it in heavily in the dark tetrad. This is psychopath, sociopath, and megavillain, and sadistic. So sadism. Oh, so this is the four. Before it was the dark triad. It was only three. Now it's including sadism inside of it. So another thing with your personality trait, I stated personality cluster personality A and C are under researched because they are either the high dark personality, and the oversensitive, those who are even with the loud noise they cannot hear it, so their nervous system is intolerant to the external environment inputs, and they lack this quick response to regulate, so they require a different adaptability of environment and awareness of everyone. But who knows that, who pay attention to that? Modern life has put lots of things on us, layer after layer, layer after layer, and humans are measured now by a list. If this list does not exist, they are not humans, or they don't measure up, or they are less than, or being overlooked, or being used as a sponge for the suppression or oppression of the aggressor. So that is the human, and this is, I stated before, this is the reptilian mammalian brain. It is not elevating the human brain. That is the cortices. That is the cognitive and the higher cognitive and the metacognitive part of the brain that differentiate us from animals. Is still the infusion. We say what drives all these behaviors. You have the within the human ecological model. It's a good model for. I did it in some of the research I did in the school. So I understand now from the meso and micro to macro level how the human is impacted by all systems. We call it as well systems theory. Systems theory, it takes you from the womb till, so it takes the lifespan within every environment, every community, everything, how the complexity expand, but it goes back to the regulation of the central nervous system, attachment, the trauma history, the genetic predisposition. Currently, all the health system are being reestablished to go back to the core of the biological predisposition of the disease. So environment will be changing according to that at early age. There are some individuals, they are not tended to be like harmful to others, but their predisposition and the environment influence them drove their manifestation of dark side. I am interested in that because this is what harm more. It is not the nurturing. It is not the the authentic, empathetic, compassionate. It's not that. And we have to understand as well how to differentiate between the true authentic, the true empathetic, compassionate, and nurturing, and it shows over time, and the fake compassion, that is the manipulator or the perpetrator trying to use the vulnerable person to their advantage and sabotage their own being of sabotage the victim own being, um, over time as well, after grooming and then the honeymoon and mimicking the needs of the vulnerable person. And then after the mask is falling down, the reality is shown. But this time it depends on age, gender, socioeconomic, how far their systems are compromised, and it can lead to Stockholm syndrome. It is aligning with the aggressor of what you do. The vulnerable become another aggressor just to inflict the pain onto others. So it's not only them, others will suffer as well. And we understand how this on the societal um, effect or dynamic, it reflects, and it depends on how far the environment contributed to that, how much their genetic predisposition and their excitotoxic electrobiochemical load changing their neural circuits and their perception of the reality and their decision making, especially in the sensitive area periods of the development, when the prefrontal cortex is not intact or influenced another thing with maladaptive behaviors. And this is one of the core component of my schooling. It's how the influence of the culture and the environment on the electrobiochemical, from genetic predisposition into the immune response, the stress response, the changes in the function and the structure of the neurocircuits, and how this impact on the lifespan and health span across lifespan. So it is. I am grateful. I'm so grateful that my program allowed me just to uh, tailor my objectives to my to the goal of the program. So that I am so grateful for that. I It is the requirement of bringing awareness for what has been raptured. So from generations, we are not taught exactly how interpersonal relationships can impact positively and negatively the course of the life. Well, no one taught that, and I stated few that got it, and are protective, and they maintain uh, their healthy lifestyle, because they understand the consequences of it, what is out of this. But majority, they have to go through this, the up and down, and battle their giants and battle their giants. Some are not aware of their giants, so they can't be crushed so easily. We are not in utopia. We are in a highly complex, un not everything is explained for us. Not everything is clear in front of us. We know part of it. We know tiny little bit of the truth, but we don't know the whole truth. If anyone say, I swear to say the whole truth, it is your perception. It is not. It is fragmented. It is based on what your perceptual experience is. It is not uh, the whole truth. So that is part of another thing, that how trauma, how stress, how sleep disturbances and sleep deprivation, how malnutrition or nutrition deficiencies, all of this, it changes the electrobiochemical. It is not easy. It is highly complicated for practitioners, but the what we are accustomed to identify the symptoms and try to suppress the symptoms, but the body still, once it's awake, is like the giant, or like awakening the tiger, is double, because every time we try to suppress the biosystems, it weakens the immune response and the central nervous system to get the right signaling, so it's confused over time, the cell signaling and communication, and that weakens over time the immune system, the central nervous system, and the susceptibility to diseases and chronic illness and psychiatric conditions at early age. Now we see it in 7 years old. 7 years old. One of the researchers stated, or a 14 years old with dementia, and they are trying to find a system, because 14 years old, that is trying to find a system for the child to be taken care of, and that is a genetic component. So don't underestimate what you invite in your day, what is imposed in your day, and imagine that whatever is happening in your life, question, does it serve you? What is the intention, the motives? Who is the beneficiary? We are in a very competitive world right now. It's not easy. Lucky are those who understand their boundaries and establish a healthy life, and they are not allowing to, for this, we call it the junkies to fill their cup. Some are battling in between, in and out, and some already allowed the junks to empty their cup and fill it with many toxic reaction, electropyrochemistry reactions, like changing their beliefs or values, or based on all goes back to the genetic predisposition and the family of origin, with their stability or dysfunction. And that is the key, if there is a stability or dysfunction. And that is what the perpetrator tried to know and study their target so well. And they plan accordingly for every event to accelerate the stress response. And they understand it. They build the pattern. They understand what the target will do, and that is the outcome and mission accomplished. So I'm gonna bring again, that is part nine of the series about aggression, neuroanatomy, the pathophysiology, the etiology, and the psychoneuroendocrinology. All of this, the changes as an impact on health and disease, and we understand this in chronic illness like cardiovasculars, hypertension, cancer, neurodegenerative, or the disorders of the central nervous system. Understand every interaction with a human being, what type of interaction I'm having, and how you can develop this adaptability and tolerance in navigating the challenge without allowing it to compromise you on a cellular level, leading to tissue damage and organ damage. That is not easy. It's not easy because it's a life. You are fearfully and wonderfully made, and God gave you life. He promised to give you life. We have to keep His promises. So I have my part 9, aggression intersectionality with coronary heart disease or CHD. So, coronary heart disease is a leading cause of morbidity and mortality worldwide, and is characterized by the narrowing or blockage of coronary arteries due to atherosclerosis. And I'm going to explain atherosclerosis because that is part of the causations for stroke as well. It is multifactorial in origin, involving biological, behavioral, and psychosocial elements. Aggression, especially when chronic and unregulated, has been implicated as a risk factor for cardiovascular diseases, including coronary heart disease or CHD. Several studies show that individuals with levels of hostility and aggressive behavior are more likely to develop CHD or suffer diverse cardiac events. For example, spontaneous heart disease is not a medically recognized term, BERSA, but in clinical literature, this could refer to a sudden cardiac event, often triggered by acute emotional or psychological stress. That is the broken heart syndrome. Broken heart syndrome, it's like the heart started to have the shape of the octopus. Imagine the shape of the octopus. So there is over time deformation of the heart structure and function. Acute aggression, emotional dysregulation, or extreme stress can activate the sympathetic adrenal medullary or SAM axis and hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis or HB axis, releasing catecholamines and cortisol, that is norepinephrine or adrenal cortisol, and that elevate heart rate and blood pressure conditions that can lead to spontaneous cardiac dysfunction in vulnerable individuals. The biopsychosocial model that is within the biomedical and psychiatric and medical health psychology, the biopsychosocial model. This is a core analytic model of the disease, and we understand what is exactly the causation and correlation association between the environment phenotype and the genotype. So the correlation between this and what led to the condition. This is from analytical research standpoint. The etiology of chronic heart disease is biological hypertension, hyperlipidemia, psychological aggression, hostility, chronic stress, social poor support systems. We are seeing that. So you see aggression from the aggressor, the one who is fully aware what harm they are going to cause to the target, and the target, their reactivity or their defense mechanisms. Some can show it verbally and physically, and some bottle up buttercup, and that impact as well harsher the electrobiochemistry. Hostility and aggression has been specifically linked to the increased development of atherosclerotic plaque, endothelial dysfunction. We see the tight junction, fragmentation, lipopolysaccharides, and still we see the alteration of the integrity and dignity of the vascular health. And this leads to atherosclerosis, increased inflammation, breakdown of endothelial cells, derbies, and it's one of the causations of stroke. And the poor cardiovascular recovery following stress. For the sympathetic activation, aggressive individuals tend to have heightened sympathetic nervous system. That is the fight, flight, freeze activity, which increases the heart rate, blood pressure, vascular resistance. Prolonged central sympathetic nervous system overactivation can damage vascular endothelium and promote atherosclerosis. HB axis dysregulation, chronic aggression is associated with dysregulation in cortisol release. Elevated cortisol levels contribute to central obesity, insulin resistance, and I explained all of this in correlation with aggression in different videos. Systematic inflammation, and they are all major risk factors for coronary heart disease or CHD. The neural circuits involved in aggression, amygdala, hypothalamus. This is our master players, amygdala, hypothalamus, preaqueductal gray, are closely linked to autonomic regulation and in emotional processing. Amygdala hyperactivity enhances threat perception and aggression responses. Prefrontal cortex hypoactivity impairs inhibition of aggression and impulses. Such a dysregulation affects heart rate variability and baroreceptor sensitivity, both predictors of poor cardiovascular outcomes. My focus on, because cluster A, there is no remorse, no empathy, no feelings. They mimic. They are good at mimicking. You think they feel? No. They don't have any feeling they don't know exactly what human feelings mean. But cluster B and cluster C, these are the elephants in the room. And I said the focus, if we would like to understand, if we would like to shed the light on the behavior modification, we need to focus on these B and C, because A won't change. And cluster B, the awareness of this, that how to identify the characteristics of the behavior, its impact on those who are around them and themselves. The narcissistic, they don't know that, they don't admit they are narcissistic, so they are always in look for the doll to observe or to compromise their identity. According to the DSM-5, personality disorders are grouped in clusters. Cluster B, dramatic, emotional, erratic. It includes antisocial, and those who are antisocial, those who are not intended to cause harm, but the environment played a huge part in their adoption of severe harm to others. Borderlines, these are like the hate love, and they are up and or down extremes, and how this can impact the response of an empathetic person. They can drain them. They can truly be drained and depleted by their behavior. Histrionic and narcissistic, linked with impulsivity, emotional dysregulation, and aggression. These traits correlates with higher allostatic load. higher inflammation, overactive immune response, a excitotoxic rate of glutamate, histamine, and norepinephrine, all of this infusion of the fight, flight, or the autonomic nervous system, impacting over time the heart rate variability, increase the heart rate, leading to hypertension and atherosclerosis over time, unless you are aware and unless you started to understand your boundaries, your limitation, identify the triggers, identify the patterns. So all this needs your own detective lens, so you can be your own detective. You don't have to hire an investigator. You can be your investigator and detective. Poor health behaviors like smoking, poor diet, or elevated chronic heart disease risk. Normally, they say the coronary heart disease is associated with type A personality, and this led to type A personality theory in behavior psychology, that those who are higher performance, higher achiever, they are on the go, they need to do. But what was behind this, we need to look for their sleep disturbances and deprivation. We would like to the level of oxidative stress, the DNA methylation I mentioned before. So we would like to understand the mechanisms that drives that disease. What drives is more important of what is manifesting or the symptoms that we see. So cluster C, anxious, fearful, avoidant, dependent, obsessive compulsive. These individuals may not show overt aggression, but chronic anxiety and perfectionism also contribute to stress and cardiovascular disease. And if you correlate it with people pleaser, this who are they don't want to displease anyone. They want to make everybody happy. They are afraid of they are going to hate on them because they may experience it, an adverse reaction from the individuals around them when they are not aligning with what they want. So this dynamic can say this is a power dynamic that they are dealing with either A or B. So, so you have they are either. So we don't know the A because it is they are so clever at disguising it, and however, they seek over control and dominance. It's obsession about control and dominance. So you need to study the person for a life and understand that they have this obsession, desire for control and dominance over people, places, or anything that in the reach. So it is subtle. Through health span, aggressive behavior is associated with a reduced health span due to poor health choices like substance use, and poor diet. Imagine, for example, diet is correlated with the social determinant of health, socioeconomic status, the food desert. You see, some areas they don't have. They have few stores, but they don't have access to fresh produce or healthy life options around them. And if they want, they have to go miles and miles to get it. And that is consuming, that adding stress, that adding a burden, that the substance use, maybe they can get it easier than having a healthy access to healthy food, healthy lifestyle, unfortunately. And this is one of the area that the perpetrator make use of it, because they are abusing the lack. Lack of social support, greater psychological wear and tear, allostatic load, because this is the tissue damage and organ damage. It happens over time. It's a load. It means a load. It starts with like a tiny particle and it accumulates like a mountain. And once it is like a mountain, everybody knows that you have this chronic illness. Cross lifespan, hostile and aggressive individuals have shorter lifespans due to increased risk of coronary heart disease, stroke, metabolic syndrome, and poor adherence to medical treatment. Imagine a person is running on the sympathetic load, sympathetic fight, flees, freeze. So imagine your biological system are not designed for that. So it's designed to the peak of stress for to accomplish a task, and then the comfort or the rest state. So we have this action potential. So we have the depolarization, and then the refractory, and then you have this rest state. So it's supposed to be not, and you have depolarization. That is sorry, hypo polarization that is below like negative 90 velocity, or so the threshold is like negative 30. So this is all electrobiochemical signal, and it can be tracked through imaging and diagnostic testing to understand this action potential. And the firing of the neurons, the excitotoxicity, and then the dampening or the dissipating, and we have the long-term potentiation. So that is like a sequence of firing. So that is depends on the strength of the conductiveness and the myelination sheath and the coating of the axonal axons, and how fast the transmission of the signaling among neurons go from one neuron to the firing, what fire together, wire together. So that's that's the years ago. What fire together? I remember this. The neurobiology of trauma. So, chronic aggression from physiological changes, neurotransmitters imbalance, altered serotonin and dopamine pathways linked with both aggression and cardiac dysregulation, increased inflammatory markers, our main players, interleukin 6, C-reactive protein, and tumor necrosis factor alpha. Reduce the heart rate variability, an HRV, indicator of poor vagal tone vagus nerve, the tensocranial nerve, and increase the cardiac rest. That's why we see the vagus nerve stimulation. This is one of the interventions that is activating the parasympathetic, that is rest and digest, because your body needs a rest. Your body needs like a synchronicity to align with whatever is going on in your life. Living in fear, that is what the perpetrator infusing fear, guilt, and shame, and these are the core trauma bonding mechanisms between the aggressor and the target, and the perpetrator understand exactly. They want to know what what is the area of shame unto the target, the guilt and fear. But fear is the major, because this is a conditioning from the biological structure for us across generation. This is the from generation, some say 4 generation, the biological or the AI model say 14 generation. We understand the survival of the fittest that run through the tribal survival, and how this is being activated for protection and for survival. So there are some pathological changes, atherosclerosis, and I said this is increased inflammation, increased lipopolysaccharides, the rupture of the endothelial cells. That is the leaking. That is when the dermis goes into places and toxins go into places they are not supposed to be. So they are running the show, the zombie having a party. Endothelial dysfunction, left ventricular hypertrophy from chronic hypertension, increased platelet aggregation, risk of thrombotic events or stroke. So, leading off thrombotic and then fibrosis, stroke, and we hear about aneurysm as well. This the missing of this protective lining of the endothelium cells. Uh, so, coronary artery disease promotes atherosclerosis via stress and inflammation. So it increases the blood pressure, heart rate variability, cortisol, and inflammation. In behavior neuroscience, affects emotion regulation areas, amygdala and prefrontal cortex. It affected alters the HB axis, reduces heart rate variability, increases inflammation. Cluster B and C traits increase health risks because these are the people that their emotional side of activation can be a risk factor or the main risk factor. It's not can be, it's a risk factor. Reduced poor, so the health span reduced via poor health behaviors and stress. Lifespan decreased due to cardiac and metabolic risk. And if you would like to go further into the cardiovascular disease and mortality through within the discipline of biological psychology or biopsychology, that can and that is the genetic predisposition and understanding the familial history and the medical history and interaction within the molecular level. So, coronary heart disease is a multifactorial condition influenced by biological, psychological, and behavioral factors. Emerging evidence strongly correlates the psychological traits, particularly aggression, with the pathogenesis of coronary heart disease. This interaction is further complicated by trauma history, oxidative stress, and sleep disturbances, which collectively shape the etiology and physiological manifestations of cardiac disease through behavioral neuroscience mechanisms. So we understand that these are masturbate, trauma, oxidative stress, sleep disturbances, DNA methylation, or long non-coding, RNA, all of this impacting your pathophysiology. And I said, whatever is psychological, it is physiological, because I am reaping aftermath. I am reaping after the hurricane or the tornado, the leftover. What happened? It is the rapture. Aggression, sorry. Aggression, especially trait aggression, is a stable personality disposition, and the perpetrator understand this position. If they understand that, dysfunctional, trauma history, instability, they understand the plan. Toward anger, hostility, and impulsivity has been associated with an elevated risk of coronary heart disease. This is mediated through both direct physiological pathway, autonomic dysregulation and inflammation, and the indirect behavioral mechanisms, smoking or poor diet or sleep disturbances or sleep deprivation. Hostility and anger independently predict myocardial infarction and all causes mortality. Aggressive individuals often show autonomic hyperactivity, such as elevated blood pressure and reduced heart rate variability, which are risk markers for cardiovascular disease. So, for example, spontaneous heart disease commonly refers to sudden cardiac event, myocardial infarction, or taco cardiomyopathy triggered by acute psychological stress or trauma. So the broken heart syndrome is characterized by transient left ventricular dysfunction after emotional stress, with the catecholamines surge playing a key role in norepinephrine or adrenaline. Acute anger episodes can double the risk of cardiac event within 2 hours. So acute. So imagine the heart. The heart is already every day is like accumulating the storage of the interaction of these stressors or traumatic events, psychological distress, all this. Even the person is not expressing it, the heart, the electrobiochemistry is changing, the genetic predisposition is in place, and then the alteration of the function of the cardiovascular tissue. So, coronary heart disease results from a combination of biological risk factors, hypertension, hyperlipidemia, behavior risks, smoking activity, psychosocial risks, the aggression, trauma, or poor sleep. Autonomic dysregulation is associated with aggression, is linked to chronic sympathetic activation and reduced the parasympathetic tone, inflammation, elevated interleukin 6, and C-reactive protein, tumor necrosis alpha. HB axis dysregulation, hypercortisolemia due to stress impairs glucose metabolism and increase visceral fats. So whatever energy, whatever is not metabolized, the extra glucose, it is being stored in the tissue wherever it's in the liver. That's why as well we have the non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. So not only like understand your stress level, understand the metabolism of this excessive or unmetabolized or the excessive glucose storage within the muscle tissue, within the organ, especially liver and the muscle. We're going to understand that we are having other diagnoses over time, like the non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. So stress and aggression and sleep disturbances and deprivation, inflammation, all of this, they are all is like the perfect storm to compromise the humans. From behavioral neuroscience standpoint, aggression and cardiovascular regulation share overlapping brain circuits. Amygdala, heightened reactivity contributes to threat perception and aggression. And with the target, when they have excessive trauma response or chronic trauma response, that drives the stress response, and that drives the intensive or overactive immune response, oxidative stress, that heightened the perception of the stress that is into your anterior cerebellar. It's like looking for the environment constant, and this what is hyper vigilant can occur, impulsivity can it manifest. At the same time, you see this fight, flight, freeze response from the person, and the perpetrator is having joy with that. So imagine They are having happiness with Jack in the Box. Prefrontal cortex impaired regulation leads to impulsivity and emotional discontrol. Anterior cingulate cortex modulates emotional conflict and autonomic output. These circuits directly interface with the hypothalamus, a key player in that regulation of multiple physiological functions. Uh, with the jugular vein in the vagus nerve, that is the cranial nerve, a key player in autonomic and endocrine responses, linking emotions to cardiovascular risk. Early life trauma and post-traumatic stress disorder um, are powerful predictors for coronary heart disease. PTSD is associated with increased inflammation, sympathetic arousal, oxidative stress, all which promote atherosclerosis. Trauma alters the amygdala, prefrontal cortex connectivity, heightens emotional reactivity, and cardiovascular strains. We see the manifestations of aggression and trauma history and aggression. All of that is reflecting in hypervigilance, poor emotional regulation, high baseline cortisol and catecholamine levels or norepinephrine. All these factors contribute to cardiac pathology. So nothing happened in vain. Understand all your life. Bring that I mentioned before. Make an inventory. What serves you and what could work it well. What increased your stress level, and that what you need to pay attention to. How to eliminate, how to avoid, mitigate, and how to increase what elevated your parasympathetic response. So that is the calmness, the rest and digest. So oxidative stress, that is one of the master players I mentioned. So sleep was I'm gonna say it again. Trauma is it's in particularly when trauma became the driver of all the metabolic and electrobiochemicals mechanisms. This is a dangerous state that we have to stop and understand how we can address it. And it all comes in not a medication suppress it. Your lifestyle changes, what you allow in your space. Nothing is inevitable. There are good people and bad people. However, we don't know exactly what mechanisms everyone is operating from. So we have to be aware. Aggressive individuals display elevated markers of oxidative stress, including malondialdehyde and reduced antioxidant defenses, glutathione and SOD. Chronic stress leads to mitochondrial dysfunction. That is your powerhouse. That is your energy manufacturer. So go figure it out. And your brain has its own immune system and mitochondria makeup that truly can impact many aspects of your life and how you feel, how you connect, how you relate, how you communicate. Increasing reactive because you are acting from what is reservoir, what healthy reservoir, and that's the same what unhealthy reservoir you are carrying within your body. I don't care about the outside. I care more about what you carry, what load you are carrying. Are you carrying the parasympathetic mode system more, or you are carrying the sympathetic? And this is how can impact the dynamic of the group interaction and communication. Chronic stress leads to mitochondrial dysfunction, increasing reactive oxygen species, ROS production, and it's heavily in cancer patients who see reactive oxygen species. Reactive oxygen species promote the low cortisol oxidation that is leading to fibrosis, arthrosclerosis, and the rupture of the endothelial cells. And doesn't happen over time. Once in a time. It's it's subtle. Your health, if we want to go back to understand how to start, how to mitigate these toxic mechanisms in your metabolic system. When I say metabolic system, that is a molecular and cellular mechanism, and it shows in the excitotoxicity rate, like cortisol and glutamate, and the allostatic load, that is the neuroinflammation, inflammation, and the markers of oxidations. So, a major factor in plaque formation and the instability in coronary artery disease. Imagine that you are having metals, and these metals, they don't have the coating protective layer. Sometimes when you buy something, it's a, would you like coating to protect? Because we understand that metals interact with the air environment. There are chemicals are interacting, like iron, copper, other metallic and other ionic components in the air. So we that the things, the objects, some say, I'm going to do this coating layer to protect, so I can sustain what I have purchased for a longer time and it is not depreciating. However, this is what we want to look at: our vascular health, how we can maintain the coating layers, the healthy coating, the gut lining, the endothelial cells, the tight junction, it reduce inflammation, reduce the oxidative stress, and all of this. That is what we need to look for when we are going to promote early prevention and intervention. So we need to go into these pipelines, your artery, your veins, your artery and your veins, and how, because they are carrying all the oxygenated and non-oxygenated blood, that is carrying the toxins, that is carrying the oxygen and nutrients. So you have different pipelines. If these pipelines are being ruptured, there is a mix between the function and the structure. Therefore, there are toxics that will seep into tissue, into organ system, that cause damage and rupture, and it can be unreversible. So your brain is the most expensive organ, and God made it this way, of this mushy, for a reason. God doesn't made it like a solid, like the liver and the heart, and he understands, well, you are fearfully and wonderfully made. The higher sensitivity, the higher conductivity, the higher transductions, and we say the lighter, the optimal, and the higher function it can exist. However, the density, that what we request from the neuro health, for the muscle tissue, that is the right metabolism. The what type of metabolism is taking place into all these neurotransmitters, enzymes, proteins, ions, all of this, how they are being the makeup of them within me was influence of stress, trauma, sleep disturbances, lifestyle behaviors like smoking, alcohol, and other substance use, food addiction, ultra processed products into your body, even the toxins from your personal care, from your housekeeping care, everything is all interrelated. And what is the makeup that you have been in the utero and within your sensitive period of development, and all this interact with the interpersonal relationships, connections, and communication. Relationships, guys, it is the core vital component either for health and disease. So never mitigate, because we have understand that peer pressure, social pressure, culture pressure, all of this impact the choices. And 24/7, you are making choices. Your brain constantly working. So it's making choices 24/7. So it's not stopping. Even you think that you're not doing something, your brain is working and making decisions for you. So be aware. Sleep disturbances in both is both a consequence and a contributor to aggression. Imagine the first thing is to say that when a person is agitated or irritable, oh, you don't have enough sleep. So we indirectly, we automatically correlate the activation of the negative behavior into lack of sleep. So that brings us that is sleep is a core component of emotional regulation. It is unloading this toxic load and allowing them to rearrange and decode and uncode and started to clear the house for a new day. But if you don't have enough sleep, if you are sleep deprived, or you have interrupted sleep, that means that the house is not fully clean. You are carrying a load from this day to the other day to the other day, and it's accumulative, and your brain doesn't make up for the sleep deprivation. What has missed is missed. That means another intervention. We call it from early intervention. That is the phyto micronutrients. So to feed the brain the good things, like a person is very tired, so you have to have some rest, or I provide the right nutrients to nourish and to reinnovate the strength and easing the electrobiochemical processes within the body. As I said, sleep disturbances in both is both a consequence and a contributor to aggression and cardiovascular disease. Short sleep duration, less than 6 hours, and insomnia are linked to increased inflammatory markers and hypertension. Aggression and trauma are associated with poor sleep quality, contributing to sympathetic overactivation and diminished heart rate variability, which exacerbate the chronic heart disease risk. Sleep deprivation impairs the prefrontal cortex, control over the amygdala. So you have overactive amygdala. This means you can be impulsive or hypervigilant with triggering from the environment, leading to emotional dysregulation, which feeds back into aggressive behavior and stress-induced cardiovascular risk. So aggression is a sympathetic, is increased the sympathetic activity, decreased heart rate variability, increased the inflammation. Trauma impacted with a high activation or dysregulation in HB axis and SAM activity, emotional dysregulation, oxidative stress increased reactive oxygen species, vascular injury, because this is, like I said, the rust in the middle. And it happened that once the rust is touching an area, this can cause a lesion. So arteriosclerosis, sleep disturbances, increase inflammation, decrease vagal tone, increase the blood pressure. The combination of the psychological stress, aggression, and trauma, and the biological stress, oxidative and sleep loss, creates a synergetic environment that correlates cardiovascular aging and increases risk for spontaneous and chronic diseases. Aggression plays a significant role in the etiology and pathogenesis of coronary heart disease through mechanisms involving HB axis, autonomic dysregulation, oxidative stress, and sleep disruption. Aggression contributes to the onset and the progression of cardiovascular disease. Trauma and poor sleep further compound these risks by impairing regulatory circuits in the brain and perpetuating systemic inflammation. That your cell is reading inflammation is replicate, that is the norm. So they are confused already. So there is molecular confusion. So things are not supposed to be in place. They are there. They're not supposed to do what they do. They are doing it. So there's confusion in the house. There are some differentiation factors that it's based on like the disciplinary context, like in biology, psychology, medicine, sociology. There are some differentiation factors. So, like for example, for cell biology, these are biochemical signaling, and practitioners like their lab or neuroimaging, especially the laboratory work that reflect these mechanisms or differentiation factors on cell biology. So these are biochemical signals or transcription factors that influence a stem or progenitor cell to differentiate into a specific cell type, especially witnessed in the embryonic stage. Bone morphogenics protein promote osteogenic and neural differentiation. GATA factors involved in hematopoietic or blood cell differentiation. MYOD, a transcription factor that it drives the muscle cell differentiation. That is, we say, from the embryonic, and this is from the fetus development. Is some of the differentiation factors and predisposition to specific malfunction or alteration can be detected. Retionic acid drives neural and epithelial differentiations. During development and in adulthood, like in the brain and the vasculature, differentiation factors influence neurogenesis, angiogenesis, and tissue repair. For example, endothelial progenitor cell differentiation is, this is so important in cardiovascular diseases in the rupture. It's critical for repairing blood vessels in coronary heart disease. In psychological and behavioral context, this differentiation traits refers to traits, experiences, or conditions that causes individual to develop distinct personality traits, cognitive patterns, emotional responses. So this is highly influenced by the environment and what type of nurture versus nurture. Early life trauma may differentiate individuals into high aggression or anxiety-prone profiles. Genetic predisposition like 5-HT-TLBR gene influences emotional regulation and stress response. Environmental exposures, including parental style, socioeconomic status, shape emotional coping and aggression regulation. These factors help explain why some individuals under chronic stress develop coronary heart disease, while others with similar biological risk factors do not. That's when come resiliency, that will come protective factors. Another thing, what experiences that reversed or impacted or influenced the manifestation or non-manifestation. Behavior and differentiation, like aggressive versus passive stress response, can significantly alter cardiovascular outcomes. And differentiation factors in, for example, in cancer or cellular pathology will differentiated cell resemble normal cell and usually indicate a less aggressive disease. Poorly differentiated or undifferentiated cell often mean a more aggressive or malignant condition. Hawaii, this concept is mostly used in cancer pathology. It metaphorically applies to aggressive psychological profile and physiological correlates. In cardiovascular diseases, dysregulated emotional profile may be linked to poorly differentiation regulatory system. So even I say you have 2 million cells every day replenishing, die and replenish. So your body is an autonomic renovation process, and that's how God is equipped you and built within your biosystem for life. However, with the whatever experiences, whatever environmental context is in place, altering these mechanisms, it impacts the cell differentiation, and whatever is confused, it's gonna replicate confuse. So differentiation factors for from neurocardiology, neurotrophic factors, BD, NF, brain-derived neurotrophic factors, critical for neural differentiation and plasticity, and are reduced in chronic stress and aggression. Vascular endothelial growth factor promotes vascular regeneration influenced by sleep and oxidative stress. Is cytokines, pro-inflammatory signaling, interleukin 6, tumor necrosis factor alpha, prolonged inflammation impairs proper cellular differentiation, particularly in repair pathway in coronary heart disease. Another thing we say sociodemographic, so the population. So age, gender, sex, level of education, socioeconomic status, all these factors, neighborhood safety, life events, whatever, it's all incorrect. Your population are shaped within multifactorial or multifaceted complex interaction between lots of parameters. So we have to look at that, the differentiational factors between among the population that you would like to provide treatment, intervention, or prevention. Like this is the population level differences in disease repression and behavioral patterns. Like for example, gender, men may express more externalized aggression. Women may show more internalizing symptoms, each affecting coronary heart disease risk differently. And you have to understand That is why when say body language, tone of voice, facial expression, the vagal tone, the emotional dysregulation. Um, Look at the eye. Look at the eye. What they present to you. If you become the hand gesture, the gestures, the hand gesture, the feet or the leg movement, it's all of these indicators. It shows you some over time. You can, if you would like to go through this process, I'm trying. So, but every time I learn something, I connected with past experience. Oh, that makes sense. That makes sense. But however, the the normalcy or the culture tapestry that normalized the specific attitudes and behaviors and beliefs toward one another, that can be one of the subtle factors in increased um, broken heart syndrome, or the octopus, the heart to look like the octopus is not function well. It can make you understand the group dynamic, the in group, the outer group, the power dynamic within the hierarchy, or it can give you a whole data that will affect how you respond, or uh, you understand your boundaries, where they start. And that will make you a huge shift. You are not fixing the whole world. You are not like, as I say, you are like a dumping bag. Whatever is imposed onto you, you have to observe. You learn how to observe, not to observe. So absorption, that is what heighten the autonomic stress response, and this is what the perpetrator is using. And they study you, they know your patterns, how you react, and under what environment that these outcomes will present itself. They love to infuse it, they love to proceed in it. It's incremental, it is calculated in specific times. If you are allowed yourself to understand this pattern, you are going to start your investigative own journey about your own health, about your well-being, and how to stand up for yourself, how to elevate the human brain, not living from the animal brain that keeps this reptile in a survival mode. So we can understand that my apology. Um, gender has a specific gender has a specific key key factor in key factor in the stress response. Education, lower educational attainment is associated with poor stress coping strategies. Race and ethnicity, we understand the tribal survival mechanism. So the priority for the in group and the excommunication or elimination of the outside or the outer group. That is the tribal survival. And it can lead to multiple of escalations, multiple of even violence, domestic violence, aggression toward one another, targeting specific individuals just to keep the tribal interest is a priority other than any other thing. And that impacts the health of the individuals. Um, so differentiation factors that we say it can, some of the clinical and research based or clinical trials, they work on differentiation factors because this is narrowing the scope of of attention and the study, so they understand what they should target in the future and how it influence the projection of chronic illness and psychiatric conditions for a specific population or individuals within age, gender, race, sex, ethnicity, level of education, and other sociodemographic factors. Don't underestimate anything around you. It all impacts your cellular mechanisms. So the differentiation factors influence the cellular development, neuroendocrine function, and cardiovascular physiology. Gene variant like MAOA, we said that is one of the indicators, the genetic predisposition of aggressive traits. 5-HTTLBR, alter neurotransmitters metabolism and increase aggression potential. BDNF, VEGF, and MYOD affect neural and cardiac cell differentiation and plasticity. HB axis dysregulation, increase the cortisol, sympathetic overactivation, increase the catecholamines or the noradrenaline, reduce the parasympathetic tone, reduce the high heart rate variability and vascular stress. It creates a neuro physiological environment favoring emotional dysregulation, vascular inflammation, and atherosclerosis, and leading to stroke. So we understand the rapture. Early experiences shape long-term behavior and physiological stress response. Early life trauma, like childhood abuse, neglect, hyperactive amygdala, impaired prefrontal cortex. PTSD risk, persistent stress reactivity, higher aggression, and higher risk of coronary heart disease. Cognitive affective traits like traits of aggression, hostility, impulsivity, poor emotional regulation, increases reactivity to stress, frequency of anger episodes, and physiological wear and tear or allostatic load. So we understand the damage of the tissue and organ systems. It doesn't happen over like a sudden or is a singular factor. You are acting or operating, understand your ecological systems. That is a system theory. Aggression-related behaviors directly contribute to cardiac risk, health behavior, smoking, alcohol, drug use, sedentary lifestyle, poor diet, sleep patterns is like sleep deprivation, reduce the prefrontal cortex control over emotion centers, aggression, increase the aggression. Short sleep increase the inflammation, decrease the vagal tone, and increase the risk of coronary heart disease. Behaviors rooted in aggression reinforce physiological damage, promoting coronary heart disease. These factors shape emotional expression, health access, this is the environmental and social culture, stress exposure, gender role, men more likely to externalize aggression, women internalize anxiety, Low socioeconomic status, increase exposure to chronic stress, decrease access to care. Culture norms, acceptance of aggression varies. And as I stated before, some cultures infuse aggression as a source of control, dominance, power, authority, strength. So some cultures take aggression as a bride for their actions, but they don't understand the electrobiochemistry changes over time and how it is weaponized against humanity. I call it dehumanization. Environmentally reinforced behavior and stress lead to cardiovascular vulnerability. So we understand that now is chronic stress and aggression impact on HB axis and sympathetic medullary axis activation, increase the blood pressure, increase the heart rate, increase the cortisol, the perfect storm for oxidative stress, ROS, endothelial dysfunction, plaque formation, pro-inflammation cytokines, interleukin 6, C-reactive protein, tumor necrosis factor, and vascular inflammation. Reduced heart rate variability, poor autonomic balance, behavioral loops, aggression, poor sleep, and poor diet, compounding heart risk. So aggression acts as a central behavior phenotype, that is the gene-environment interaction, shaped by differentiation factors, genetic, developmental, environmental, that influence neurobiological systems, which drive both emotional behavior and cardiovascular function. Feedback loops between emotional dysregulation, poor behavior, sleep, substance use, and physiological stress responses reinforce the progression toward spontaneous or chronic heart disease. The intersectionality of aggression with central nervous system, and your core is your central nervous system. We're not taught at early age the importance. Your core, your central nervous system. How can I nurture that? How can I start to infuse the healthy habits, the healthy lifestyle, so I can have this person over the sensitive? They have this resiliency, endurance, perseverance, and adaptability, and be able to work under pressure. They are not losing it under pressure, and that we are witnessing in highly in adolescents and young adults. um, Still the awareness point is not there. So we understand that the intersectionality that describe how multiple social identities, race, gender, socioeconomic status, disability, sexual orientation interact and compound experiences of oppression and the privilege. In neuroscience and health, intersectionality helps explain why certain groups experience greater psychological and physiological stress burdens, which directly impact the central nervous system functioning and disease risk. The central nervous system, especially the brain structures such as the amygdala, prefrontal cortex, hippocampus, and hypothalamus, is central to processing stress, emotions, and trauma. Marginalized groups like African American or individuals in poverty or low socioeconomic status experience chronic discrimination, microaggressions, and economic insecurities, leading to hyperactivation of HB axis, chronic elevation of cortisol, structure and functional changes in the amygdala and hippocampus over time. Studies show that individuals that exposed to racism, for example, show increased amygdala activation in response to race-related stimuli. Early life adversity, children raised in environment marked by intersecting disadvantage, like low socioeconomic status, racial discrimination, community violence, are more likely to experience toxic stress, which disrupt brain maturation, that interrupts the development of the frontal cortex, that alter the HB axis, that makes the male adaptive behavior as a compromise or as a numbing or seeking of avoidance or a relief out of pain. But it is a quick fix, it's not working on what really is going on. Reduce the cortical thickness, the thinning of the cortical. So, especially in the prefrontal cortex, which affects emotional regulation and executive function. You see hypervigilant impulsivity and antisocial behaviors. These effects are not simply additives, but multiplicative and reinforcing how intersectional stress alters the central nervous system development. For example, like trauma, intersectionality with the brain, complex trauma in marginalized population with multiple marginalized and identity are more likely to experience complex trauma, repeated interpersonal and systemic trauma, which affect amygdala, increase the volume and reactivity, prefrontal cortex, decrease the inhibitory control over emotions, hippocampus atrophy due to glucocorticoid neurotoxicity. Women are twice are likely as men to develop PTSD. But some of the minorities, women face even higher risk due to intersectional vulnerabilities. Some individuals alter the white matter integrity, that is the connectivity of the neuron and transduction and the signaling among the axonal terminals and the speed of the information processes and understanding, learning, memory. Possibly link it to chronic stress, discrimination, and high risk of vulnerability effects. Allostatic load and the central nervous system, repeated exposure to social stressors across intersecting identities result in increased neuroinflammation, interleukin 6, tumor necrosis, factor alpha, and that is, we said that these are the main layers of for us, and C-reactive protein. Accelerated brain aging, increased the risk for neurodegenerative diseases, depression, and cardiovascular disease. And all this is all physiological response. Marginalized groups are underrepresented in neuroscience research. I say now it's the studies or the approach of integrating neuroscience in all like a type of prevention and intervention, because we'd like to understand that the regulation of the central nervous system, then the compartment of the biological system or the organ system. So it's all started with the central nervous system, what alter, what dysregulation, what differentiation factors, what protective factors, what genetic predisposition. The cerebrospinal fluid, now they are going to start to look at it as like a high indicator of biomarkers for developing specific diseases overrun within specific population. So we are going back to the core, into the molecular science of a diagnosis. They often receive delayed diagnosis for neurological conditions like dementia and epilepsy. Dementia, it has like a huge. You have to roll out, and it's a big process to roll out many things, and then to the person can live with dementia for many years, and they don't know until. So implicit bias in healthcare professionals affects neurological care as well. So we have to look at, as scholar practitioners who are being in the process of training, we have to identify our biases. We have to identify what are culture biases, what are the socioeconomical biases, what are the psychological biases, the references or the interference between the practitioner experience or whatever the stereotyping and the cognition load they are having is toward a specific population, and how this affect their decision making, and how this can may present it, because we have to understand, are you using your position to gain control, to gain dominance or power or authority over a vulnerable person. So this is as well, it has to go within the ethical and law section of training. And this every year we are exposed to the ethical and law protocol and strategies and all of that, and what does it indicate, and what does it mean, what is allowed and what is not. So it give you another link or a lens toward like, oh my goodness, um, we do many things wrong. We do many things wrong. Unless you are aware, you're gonna understand, and then you have the responsibility to change your behavior. So we say like race and poverty affect on the central nervous system, increase the amygdala reactivity, like driven by discrimination induced stress, gender and trauma, reduce the prefrontal cortex, driven by so PTSD risk and emotional dysregulation, stigma, identity, that is a decreased white matter integrity, driven by chronic minority stress, so low socioeconomic childhood neglect, that is lower cortical thickness and developmental delay, racism, sexism. So lots of things we have to pay attention to. Is the belief or the decision or the perceptual reality is driven by a specific stereotyping or biases toward individual or a population. Increase HB axis activation and driven by the allostatic overload. The intersectionality provide a critical framework for understanding how social identities and the structure of inequities shape central nervous system function. The cumulative and interacting effects of trauma, discrimination, and socioeconomic adversity alter brain development, stress responses, emotional regulation, and increase susceptibility to neurological and cardiovascular diseases. Without the intersectional lens, neuroscience risk overlooking the true drivers of health disparities. So understand what is the intention, what are the motives, what the beneficiary, what is the level of intensity, severity, and flexibility or rigidity. So all of these are questions, and automatically by training we understand this is like we have to go through this list mentally in a second, so understand what influence the behavior. So for example, there is uh, one second. Yes. So, as I said, HB axis dysregulation, like chronic stress leading to excess cortisol and brain structure changes, allostatic load, wear and tear of the central nervous system from repeated exposure to stress, leads to early onset of mental and physical illness. So, we understand from the psychiatric and the chronic illness perspective, it's a metabolic issue. It is not organ issue. The organ is the symptom. but what mechanisms are taking place and how long and its severity and duration and all of this and factors that drives that. That's what we are looking at, the root causes of the symptoms. So you're going from the inside out, not out, because whatever you are oppressing is going to persist because the load is still there, the toxic load is still there. So once the dissipation or the effect of the placebo is gone, so that was increased input, that is weakening the central nervous system immune response and the high susceptibility for more diseases. So neuroinflammation, elevated cytokines, interleukin 6, tumor necrosis factor alpha is in marginalized groups linked to depression and neurodegeneration. So I mentioned before there are two regions of the brain, the default mood network and the reticular formation. And I'm bringing them back here in response to stress, negative emotions, and negative experiences, negative interactions. And if you are having a hard day, so how they impact your molecular mechanisms. So default mood network is a large scale brain network active during rest, self-reflection, mind wandering, autobiographical memory, and internal emotional state. Reticular formation, a brainstem structure that regulates arousal, wakefulness, pain modulation, attention, and sleep awake transitions, part of the ascending reticular activating system. The reticular formation provides the arousal and the consciousness modulation necessary for the default mood network to operate. Disruptions in reticular formation arousal due to trauma, chronic stress can destabilize default mood network connectivity, leading to dissociation, emotional dysregulation, fatigue, and attentional deficit. And with this, we understand in chronic stress, um, abuse and abuse, especially with type A and type B personalities. So the person likes to dissociation to separate themselves from the overwhelmed central nervous system. Many goes to this state, they can lead to self-harm or withdrawal, avoidance, and more other negative impact on the electrobiochemistry balances. For example, in PTSD, hypervigilance, reticular formation coexists with intrusive self-referential thoughts for a default mood network, causing cognitive dissonance and stress. So we see the person is not seeing what's happening. They are running a specific scenario and their body takes over. The thalamus for reticular formation, relay for sensory gating, default mood network, integration hub, filters internal versus external stimuli. Prefrontal cortex modulates reticular formation alertness, central to in default mood network, self-regulation, moral reasoning. Posterior cingulate cortex, that is default mood network code node, integrates arousal signals with interception. Brainstem nuclei site in reticular formation controls arousal state for default mood network function. We understand the intersectionality when it comes to default mood network and the reticular formation. So you have this higher cognitive with autonomic response. So how they are integrated or regulated in with the intersectionality of the psychosocial distress in altering all of this. Trauma and marginalization. Individuals from intersectionally disadvantaged background, like low socioeconomic status, race, gender, minority, showed overactivation of reticular formation, hyperarousal, disrupted the default mood network connectivity in rumination and intrusive thinking. Rumination, you see it in depression, and this is anhedonia, and this state of regretful for what has been missing, and they cannot hopelessness. Interested, this is PTSD, increase the vulnerability to PTSD, depression, and dissociation. Minority stress and dissociation, constant vigilance due to identity-based threats, and reticular formation overdrive. Internalized stress and identity conflict for DM and rumination, result of fragmented sense of self. And this is the distortion. That is what the cluster B can bring into light and into this fragmented sense of self, a loose sense of self. This is when they are susceptible to be influenced by the aggressor and the perpetrator. The vulnerability doesn't occur in vain. There are drivers for it. But how we can identify that, how we can take responsibility of ourselves first, and then whatever we put in the world, not projecting. So fragmented the sense of self, emotional numbing, and depersonalization. For BTCD, hyperactive reticular formation, disrupted default mode network, flashbacks, intrusive memories, depression, hypoactive reticular formation, overactive default mode network, excessive rumination. So you have these extremes. You have these because your brain, neurosynaptics goes through a phenomena called all or nothing. All or nothing. There's wiring, or there is nothing. So chronic fatigue, burnout, and I mentioned chronic fatigue syndrome. That is when the body went into this depreciation of the physiological function. And this can lead to disability, one of the diagnoses to disability. So burnout that occurs, but over time, burnout, if it is not addressed on a physiological way and understand your excitotoxic ratio and allostatic load, it can go back fast. So you have to understand that not only well-being from the psychological and the mental, but your mental and psychological and emotional and everything is going to change when your metabolism is in place, when your excitotoxicity ratio is mitigated, and the allostatic load being understood and addressed. So other than this, you are just making a placebo or sugar coating of what happened in the body, ignoring the interaction between the body and the body, mind and the body on the pathophysiological response, or the dysfunction of the metabolic mechanisms. Dissociative disorders, default mood network splits from reticular formation input, alter the sense of agency and body ownership. So norepinephrine, the mediators, norepinephrine and acetylcholine from reticular formation influence the cognitive alertness, default mode network deactivation during tasks. Cortisol and chronic stress alters the reticular formation activity and default mode network architecture. The default mode network and reticular formation operate as a complementary system. So your body is having the main team and the sub team and the supportive team and whatever. Your body is designed, you are fearfully and wonderfully made. A system that mediates the balance between internal mental state and external sensory alertness. Their dysregulation, especially under condition of chronic intersectional stress, can lead to severe neuropsychiatric outcomes. Studying their intersection offers a critical insight into the neurological and social inequities. The intersectionality, another thing, so that okay, so I spoke about the neuroanatomy of the genetic predisposition of aggression, the etiology and physiology, the perceptual memory and stress and trauma and oxidative stress, DNA demethylation, all of that, and the default mood network and reticular formation and their role, intersectionality of psychiatric conditions and neurological disorders. So we understand the role of the alteration of the perceptual experiences. There are other players in the house. So that is a jugular vein. So I'm bringing jugular vein, circle of Willis, aquaporins, and enteric nervous system. So these other players. So intersectionality examines how multiple overlapping social identities and systematic factors like race, gender, socioeconomic status, environmental exposure collectively impact health outcomes. Applied to neurovascular and enteric physiology, intersectionality highlights how these systemic factors influence vascular integrity, neural function, and disease risk through biological pathways involving jugular vein, circle of Willis, aquaporins, and enteric nervous system. For the jugular veins are critical for cerebral venous drainage, influencing intracranial pressure and brain homeostasis. Variations or pathologies, jugular vein stenosis, can contribute to neurovascular disease like a stroke or dementia. Social determinant that like access to healthcare, environmental pollution, and chronic stress disproportionately affect populations. Exacerbating risk for vascular conditions impacting jugular vein function. The circle of Willis is a vascular, we call it's more into vascular, call into molecular vascular health. And that's when we have to have the intervention. We have to understand the biomarkers, genetic predisposition, environmental factors, the phenotype genotype interactions. So we have to understand that. So understand what kind of intervention and prevention and which population are really high risk of these diseases. So early intervention is, and say prevention is better than cure, because some diseases they don't have cure. People have to live with that, so they have to figure out how to regulate, how to accommodate, and all of that. It is not easy. It takes a village. The circle of Willis is a vascular ring at the brain base that provides collateral blood flow. Anatomical variations in the circles of Willis are common and can influence stroke risk. Intersectional factors such as racial, ethnic, genetic diversity, hypertension prevalence in marginalized communities, and chronic stress interact to modulate cerebral blood flow and at risk of cardiovascular incidents. Aquaporins, that is a water challenge in neural and vascular health. So these are the water gate. Those are the irrigation system for your cellular mechanism, your homeostasis and apoptosis and all things. So aquaporins regulate water transport across all cell membranes, crucial for brain edema, cerebrospinal fluid regulation, and blood-brain barrier integrity. Dysfunction or altered expression of aquaporins, particularly aquaporin 4, is implicated in neuroinflammation and stroke outcomes. This is one of the biomarkers that practitioners look at, aquaporin 4. They understood biomarkers is so critical because it gives you a mirror what's going on a metabolic mechanism or a cellular function. So environmental stressors such as chronic trauma and pollution exposure disproportionately affect a marginalized group and may alter aquaporin expression via epigenetic mechanisms. So that is the phenotype, the gene expression, and gene environment interaction. And I did it in one video, epigenetics. Enteric nervous system, or the second brain in the system, systemic interaction. The enteric nervous system governs the gastrointestinal function. That is your stress response, and that is your immune function. Started. Look at your gut and serotonin, all of that. So it communicates bidirectionally with the central nervous system, gut-brain axis. This regulation in the enteric nervous system is linked to disorders like irritable bowel syndrome, which disproportionately affect women and marginalized groups due to intersectional stressors like trauma, diet, and healthcare access. Chronic systemic inflammation from enteric nervous system dysfunction can influence the cerebral vasculature through systemic cytokines, affecting the circle of Willis and jugular vein in return. So, so the jugular vein, because it's all electrophysiological. It's not only the behavior. Socioeconomic status, pollution, healthcare disparities increase the neurovascular disease risk. Circle of Willis, genetic variation, hypertension, stress, stroke risk modulation. Aquaporins, environmental toxins, trauma, epigenetics, neuroinflammation, edema, regulation. Enteric nervous system based on gender, trauma, diet, healthcare access, GI disorders or gastrointestinal disorders, and systemic inflammation. It's all in the gut. The interplay between the biological structure like the jugular vein, circle of Willis, aquaporins, enteric nervous system, with intersectional social determinants profoundly affect neurovascular and enteric health. Addressing health disparities require integrating biological knowledge with sociocultural context. So once again, the jugular vein is major venous drainage from the brain, regulates intracranial pressure. Jugular vein stenosis linked to cognitive impairment and stroke risk. Disparities in healthcare and environmental exposure exacerbates jugular vein disease in marginalized population. A circle of Willis, this is collateral arterial network providing cerebral blood flow redundancy. Common anatomical differences influence stroke vulnerability. Genetic diversity, hypertension prevalence, and chronic stress in minority groups affect vascular resilience. Aquaporins regulate water movement in brain, maintain blood-brain barrier integrity. So key in cerebral edema and neuroinflammation. Environmental and social stressors impact aquaporin expression via epigenetics, gene environment interaction, or gene expression, contributing to health disparities. Enteric nervous system governs the gastrointestinal function and communicates with the central nervous system within the gut-brain axis. Disorders like irritable bowel syndrome linked to enteric nervous system dysfunction, disproportionately affecting women in marginalized groups. And this is when the vagal tone stimulation or the vagus nerve stimulation intervention can be more effective in this population. Chronic inflammation from enteric nervous system affects systemic vascular health, potentially impacting cerebral vessels. Stroke disparities in specific populations linked to circle of Willis variation and hypertension, aquaporin dysfunction in trauma-exposed communities, enteric nervous system dysfunction, and irritable bowel syndrome prevalence in women with social stress. The importance of addressing social determinants of health alongside biological factors in treatment and potential for targeted intervention, vascular health monitoring, stress reduction, environmental health improvements. More diverse cohort studies to explore, this is what the future directions for understanding the role of these players in cardiovascular and neurodegenerative. So more diverse cohort studies to explore genetic, environmental, and social interactions, reducing disparities in healthcare access and environmental exposure through targeted policies, personalized medicine incorporating intersectional risk profiles. And I mentioned multiple profiles. If you would like to work on one profile in connection with health and disease and targeting a special population, that will be more beneficial to understand the differentiation of factors and what intervention can be more appropriate. Intersectionality provides a holistic lens of neurovascular and enteric health. Understanding how jugular veins, circle of Willis, aquaporins, and enteric nervous system interact with social factors is critical for reducing health disparities. Integrative approaches needed to research and clinical. And right now, the approach is connecting research to practice. So that is when we say we are allowing to dive deep into the disease narrative, because the disease has a narrative, and this narrative not only within the quantitative analysis, we need a qualitative and mixed method to intersect what drives and what is presented and which way to go forward. The circle of Willis is a ring-like atrial structure located at the base of the brain, surrounding the optic chiasm. That is your visual system, and the pituitary gland, that's HP axis or hypothalamic or the endocrine. It serves as a critical anastomotic network or anastomotic network connecting the anterior and posterior cerebral circulation. It consists of anterior cerebral arteries, left and right, anterior communicating artery, internal carotid arteries, left and right, posterior cerebral arteries, left and right, posterior communicating arteries, left and right. If you see it, it's like, I don't know how to say it. It's really interesting. It has all these outlets, all this to your brain regions. This atrial circles provides. So it's like it is a collective network of veins or arteries that is responsible for the blood flow within the brain and back to the body. Yeah, so the gut brain axis. So it's how it works is that you have all these communication channels, transport channels, and all of this within your body. I don't know how to describe it, but I'm trying my best. The primary role of the circles of Wheels is to maintain the cerebral perfusion by providing cerebral pathways collateral pathways when blood flow is compromised in one of the major arteries. This redundancy helps protect brain tissue during arterial occlusion or stenosis. So it has multiple routing. Ensure equalizes blood pressure across hemispheres, supports compensatory flow in case of unilateral carotid or the vertebral artery blockage. Important in maintaining oxygen and nutrients delivery under variable hemodynamic conditions, and that is the blood flow into from gut brain axis or from the body into the brain. So the blood flow, you have to keep this blood flow in balance for to maintain the functionality of the brain of your molecular mechanisms. Stroke prevention and risk. A complete and functional circle of Willis can mitigate ischemic damage to redistributing blood flow when one vessel is occluded. However, anatomical variations or incomplete circuits reduce this protective effect, increasing stroke susceptibility. Aneurysm formation, the anterior communication artery and posterior communicating arteries are common sites of intracranial aneurysm, often due to hemodynamic stress and arterial junctions at the arterial junctions. Surgical landmark, it is a critical landmark for neurological procedures involving cerebral vasculature. The circle of Willis is complete in only about 20 to 50% of individuals. Common variants include the hypoplasia or absence of one or both, absence or hypoplasia of ACOMA, fetal origin of the BCA or arises mainly from ICA rather than basilar artery, variation in the size and symmetry of arteries. These variants influence cerebral blood flow dynamics and they can predispose to vascular pathologies. Ischemic stroke, occlusion in one major artery can sometimes be compensated by collateral flow via the circle of Willis. incomplete or variant anatomy reduces this capabilities. Aneurysms, hemodynamic stress at the junction can cause aneurysm formation, rupture of which results in subarachnoid hemorrhage or neurological emergency. Myomia, a disease or progressive stenosis of ICA branches leads to development of abnormal collateral vessels. Circle of Willis plays a role in compensatory blood flow in this disease. So some of the diagnostic is magnetic resonance angiography or angiography or CT angiography are commonly used to visualize the circle of Willis anatomy and detect variations of pathologies. Functional imaging can assess the collateral flow capacity in cerebrovascular diseases. Functional imaging, it is more about the brain activity and the blood flow. More focus on aquaporins are the family of small integral membrane proteins that form channels in the cell membrane, facilitating the rapid and selective transport of water molecules. In some cases, small solutes such as glycerol and urea, they are essential for maintaining cellular water homeostasis in a wide range of tissues. Aquaporins are typically composed of six transmembrane or alpha helix, forming a barrel-like structure with a narrow aquaspore in the center. The pore size and selectively filter allow passage of water molecules in single file, excluding ions and other solutes. Conserved ASN LA NBA motif in the pore is critical for water selectivity and transport efficiency. Aquaporins are classified based on permeability characteristics and sequence homology into two main groups. Water selective aquaporins, primarily permeable to waters, example aquaporin 1, 2, 4, 5, and 8, found in kidney, brain, lungs, and glands. Aqua glyceroporins, permeable to water, and small solutes like glycerol or urea. For example, aquaporin 3, 7, 9, and 10, found in skin, adipose tissue, and liver. Diagnostic classification often relies on tissue expression patterns, permeability properties, and molecular markers. Renal water reabsorption, aquaporin 1 is proximal tubulus, aquaporin 2 is collecting ducts, regulates by vasopressin, critical for urine concentration. Brain water homeostasis, aquaporin 4 is highly expressed in astrocytes, end feet adjacent to blood vessels, facilitating water flux in response to osmotic gradients, important in brain edema and cerebrospinal fluid circulation. Glandular secretion and astrocytes play a huge role in dementia as well. Skin hydration, aquaporin 3 aquaporin 3 mediates water and glycerol transport in keratinocytes, affecting skin elasticity. Glandular secretion, aquaporin 5 in salivary and tracheal glands aids fluid secretions. Brain edema and injury, upregulation of aquaporin 4 is implicated in cytotoxic and vasogenic brain edema, making it a diagnostic and therapeutic target in stroke, trauma, and tumors. Nephrogenic diabetes insipidus. So, mutation or misregulation of aquaporin 2 leads to impaired water absorption, causing polyuria and polydysplasia. Cancer altered expression of aquaporins like aquaporin 1 and aquaporin 3 has been associated with tumor progression and metastasis in various cancers. Autoimmune diseases, autoantibodies against aquaporin 4 causes neuromyelitis optica spectrum disorders, a severe demyelination disease distinct from multiple sclerosis. Diagnostic classification, aquaporin related disorders like genetic testings, detecting mutation in aquaporin gene, aquaporin 2, and nephrogenic diabetic insipidus. Immunohistochemistry, and that is one of the assays that in immunology they do it. Detecting abnormal aquaporin expression in tissue biopsies, a serological assay, detection of anti-aquaporin 4 antibodies or NMOSD diagnosis, or neuromyelitis optica spectrum disorders. So once again, when all these biomarkers, why they are important? Why they are important? Molecular markers are specific molecules such as proteins, nucleic acids, or antibodies that indicate the presence, quantity, and activity of biological molecule or a process. They are critical for diagnostic diseases, tracking disease progression, monitoring treatment responses, studying molecular pathways. For aquaporins, molecular markers help identify expression patterns, mutations, and pathological alterations. Like aquaporin protein expression, that is immunohistochemistry or IHS, and Western blotting use antibodies specific to aquaporin isoforms, aquaporin 1 and 4, to detect and quantify protein levels in tissue and fluids. These proteins markers reveal spatial and temporal expression and are used to identify abnormal aquaporin distribution in diseases. mRNA in correlation with gene expression via RT-PCR or in situ hybridization measures aquaporin gene transcription level. Changes in mRNA levels can indicate up or down regulation of aquaporins in response to physiological or pathological conditions. Autoantibodies and aquaporin, especially important in neuromyelitis optica spectrum disorders, where antibody aquaporin 4 IgG autoantibodies serve as diagnostic biomarker. A detection via ELSA, that's another lab work, or cell-based assay confirms disease diagnosis and guides the treatment. Mutation in aquaporin genes, genetic sequencing identifies mutation or polymorphism in aquaporin genes, which can cause or predispose to diseases such as nephrogenic diabetes insipidus and or aquaporin 2 mutation. These mutations serve as molecular markers for heredity conditions. For example, some techniques used in research enzyme-linked immunosorbent ESI or ELSA quantifies circulating aquaporin protein or autoantibodies. Western blot depicts aquaporin protein presence in size, immunofluorescence, or IH and IHC. Visualize tissue localization of aquaporin, polymerase chain reaction or BCR, detects gene expression or mutation. Cell-based AC detects functional autoantibodies against aquaporin 4, important in MOSD diagnosis. So we understand that this is all molecular or phenotype genotype interactions. We integrated the neuroendocrine and the psychoneuroimmunology and behavior neuroscience and all of that. It was a sleep trauma. I would like to shed the lights again in the correlation between the metabolic health and the alteration of the cellular mechanisms based on the allostatic load and excitotoxicity. So that is with the input of the trauma, stress, sleep, and other environmental and socio culture influences. So I'd like to speak a little bit about um, some of the integration of lifestyle modifications. So we have to understand something another to correlate to how it can impact your metabolic mechanisms. I would like to add I promise to bring phytonutrients and micronutrients. So, how they promote vascular healing, how they can reduce oxidative stress and inflammation, support the connective tissue integrity. Because this is when the rupture happens, there is high load of excitotoxicity, improve cardiovascular health and prevent reoccurrence. For micronutrients, the key or say the key beneficial micronutrients. Magnesium relaxes blood vessels, stabilize heart rhythm, but you have to understand with your practitioner why, because the magnesium has a lot of types or substrates, so you have to understand what type of um, magnesium your body needs it to be saturated in. And not enough magnesium can be saturated because stress, lack of sleep, oxidative stress interact with absorption of magnesium. So you have to understand, we have to go back to the master players again. But for the natural sources, leafy greens, nuts, and legumes, and pay attention as well of the magnesium. Some legumes can lead to absorption of half of the quantity, not all the quantity. You have to understand that. So this is with your practitioner. Vitamin C support the collagen synthesis and vessel wall healing. Citrus, strawberries, and bell peppers. Vitamin B6, 12, and folate lower homocysteine, which weakens the vessels. Whole grains, legumes, leafy greens, and eggs. Zinc aids tissue repair and antioxidants, seeds, shellfish, and legumes. Copper require for elastin and collagen cross-linking in arteries, nuts, seeds, and liver. And that is the animal organs. Vitamin K2 supports vascular elasticity, reduces calcium buildup in arteries, and it is beneficial K2 with D3. You take them together, you don't take them separate. So, fermented foods, eggs, and meat, vitamin D, immune modulation may, and they are linking again dementia, Alzheimer, and D deficiency. Because the older you get, the absorption of vitamin D from the sun, it's been compromised a little bit. So that is why you need to ask your doctor about, okay, about vitamin D or D3 dosage and what you need to do about it. You have like the functional metabolic panel analysis. So you have to have a functional metabolic panel to understand. So sunlight, fatty fish, and eggs. So with aging, I said the absorption of vitamin D. So you need like either like not 30 minutes in the sun, maybe 1 hour in the sun or 2 hours per week. Because in 30 minutes, I know that is 10,000 units. It's like the reservoir for a whole week. So micronutrients involved in collagen and elastin formation. So what you need is increasing the elasticity of the vascular or neurovascular health. Are particularly important phytonutrients through though not essential like vitamins and minerals. Phytonutrients can play a powerful supportive role in vascular health, inflammation control, oxidative stress reduction. Phytonutrients are like flavonoids, reduce endothelial inflammation, which is so important in increased inflammation and oxidative stress. So that is endothelial rupture. Flavonoids reduce endothelial inflammation and oxidative stress, like berries, green tea, apples, and onions. Carotenoids, antioxidants, support vascular health. Antioxidant diets, it's a preventive. But when the neurodegenerative disease in the prognosis stage, it's not the intervention. And the absorption is maybe the cellular mechanism already altered. This is not highly beneficial. Carrots, sweets, prevention is better than cure. Carrots, sweets, sweet potatoes, and greens. Greens, because they are important, one of the factors that it has mentioned from some of the functional practitioners, they are being exposed to the environmental stress. So they are adding the mechanisms in the cellular level very beneficial into your body. So because they already adapted into the environmental stress. So resveratrol, vasoprotective and anti-inflammatory, grapes, red wine in moderation. So this is, they have to talk with your practitioner about this. Curcumin, anti-inflammatory, may modulates MMP matrix metalloproteinases. Involved in tissue degeneration, turmeric. And turmeric with black pepper or pepperine, so to increase its absorption. And right now, some research are from endometriosis, cervical cancer, and other research in the cancer field. They are using turmeric as with those who are treatment resistant. So they are using curcumin as the second, as the first line complementary alternative intervention in women. And it depends on the stage and age, sex, gender, ethnicity, all of that, because it's all correlated with how your body mechanisms can differentiate from others. So it is Chlorophyll activates antioxidants response pathways in our F2, broccoli sprouts, and cabbage. And the sulfuride family, the cabbage, the cauliflower, the broccoli sprouts, they are really with cancer especially, they are highly preventive intervention from early stage. Quercetin stabilizes blood vessels and anti-inflammatory apples, red onions, and capers. So the main thing is in the nutritional intervention is strengthen the arterial wall integrity, vitamin C, copper, zinc, protein, flavonoids, reduce oxidative stress, antioxidants, vitamin E, C, carotenoids, polyphenols, modulates inflammation, omega-3, EPA, DHA, curcumin, flavonoids, improve endothelial function, magnesium, folate, resveratrol, nitrate-rich foods like beets. Especially when population are high susceptible for hypertension, beets is their first line of intervention. Support the connective tissue repair, proline, lysine, vitamin C, copper, glycine, collagen precursors. So how to maintain this balance? So we have to emphasize on a whole food, plant-rich diet. Include the colorful vegetables and fruits daily for diversified nutrients. Ensure adequate protein for tissue repair. Include omega-3 fatty acids from fish or flax seeds. Use herbs and spices with anti-inflammatory properties like turmeric, garlic, and ginger. Take supplements only under medical supervision. Sometimes we say we overload because this is a toxic load for the liver as well. Don't take a supplement your body doesn't need, and this increase the burden on the liver to metabolize, increasing the toxic load and the allostatic load. Avoid ultra processed food, increase in inflammation. High sugar or high sodium diets promote vascular stress. Excessive caffeine or stimulants may raise blood pressure. Unverified supplements that may interact with medication or thin the blood. The main target to promote vascular healing, reduce inflammation, support arterial wall integrity, reduce risk recurrence or other cardiovasculars. Targeting vascular inflammation, endothelial function, connective tissue integrity, and immune modulation. Another thing is the bacterium role in as a complementary or alternative to strengthen the immune or to strengthen the gut barrier integrity and reduce inflammation and increase metabolic health. So the three bacterial family, my interest is Akkermansia, mucinifera. It's a mucin-degrading bacterium linked to gut-brain integrity and reduce the inflammation and metabolic health. So if we are increasing the good bacteria, that will make the the integrity, the resiliency of the vascular walling is more protective and sustaining to carry its function more easier than in increased inflammation and the endothelial rupture. So it protects vascular endothelium. So the role, or this is the potential role of acromencia, reducing its protective vascular endothelium by reducing systemic inflammation and improving gut permeability. So it's really supportive to vascular tone, immune regulation, and connective tissue health. Strongly protective in metabolic syndrome, arteriosclerosis, a hypertension condition that, while not primary causes for cardiovascular or the vascular, the neurovascular dysfunction, that contribute to the vascular fragility in some individuals. Another group of bacteria I am interested in is lactobacillus. So lactobacillus common probiotic genus that promote gut-brain health, lower inflammation, and modulates lipid profile. Because we understand the atherosclerosis, the hyperlipidemia, all of this, we are gonna target that with focusing what foods or what type of integration within that contains the strain of Akkermansia, lactobacillus, and biofida as well. So I'm just gonna come. So we have here it modulate lipid profile. Some strains reduce pro-inflammatory cytokines. So we have the major interleukin 6 and C-reactive protein and neurotropic. I forgot it right now. So anyway, improve vascular endothelial function, and that is our increase the elasticity of your neurovascular health. How can this happen? How can some of the bacterial strains like Akkermansia, lactobacillus increase this vitality for the neurovascular health? Certain lactobacillus strains produce GABA. This is the parasympathetic rest and digest, which may reduce stress-induced hypertension. A known participant for coronary artery disease or sudden cardiac event. So it's lactobacillus has a role in that to reduce the reoccurrences. May help regulate homocysteine levels, vitamin B production, which is important in connective tissue and vascular integrity. Shown to reduce lactobacillus shown to reduce blood pressure and improve arterial stiffness in general cardiovascular population. Bifidobacterium, SAP, okay, the key genus in early life microbiome and widely used in probiotic for its anti-inflammatory and gut supportive roles. Increases butyrate production cross feeding with other microbiomes, which is critical for collagen synthesis, vascular repair. May decrease level of trimethylamine N oxide or TMAO, a metabolite linked to cardiovascular event. That is one of the biomarker as well. Bifidobacterium support gut-brain health, reducing leaky gut and systemic inflammation, indirectly reducing stress of blood vessels. So these bacterium chains or strains, it improve gut brain function, immune regulation, stress response modulation, and the connective tissue support, and that is important in neurovascular health as a target intervention. So they can reduce systemic and vascular inflammation, enhancing endothelial health and function, supporting collagen and elastin repair indirectly, reducing psychological stress response, improving metabolic and hormonal balance. However, there are requests for clinical trials to understand the cause and effect and the outcomes of this intervention within Akkermansia, Lactobacillus, and Bifidobacterium bacterium. So how to where we can get these? So for Akkermansia, eat polyphenol rich food like pomegranate, cranberries, and green tea. And this is so highly in Mediterranean diet. That is why we say Mediterranean diet is the universal diet for cardio health or neurocardio health. Lactobacillus and Bifidobacterium, fermented foods like yogurt, kefir, sauerkraut, and miso. Uh, so, foods like onions, garlic, leeks, oats, flax seeds. Sorry. This is increase the good bacteria. Look at the multi-strain formulas, including ramen sauce or B longum. And this is long strain formulas. Always consult with a cardiologist or integrative physician before starting probiotic post cardiac events. We have this is from early intervention. This is like how I can care for neurovascular health from early age, especially at sensitive period of time. Diseases or the rupture doesn't happen overnight. It takes decades. Always consult. Ask your practitioner what and between your age, gender, sex, ethnicity, and all of that, and your metabolic analysis of where you are at and what you need. Don't take supplement, and you don't need it because it can cause damage to the liver and compromise your absorption of the true natural mechanisms that your body already is trying to function from. So eat fiber-rich foods, but this is as well it based on your condition, your gut-brain axis status, your intestinal wall, and if there any condition that it prevent you from. So what is the alternative? You have to understand that. Fermented foods, some cannot tolerate the fermented food. So what can be another alternative? Hydration, low sodium, of course, for hypertension, anti-inflammatory fats for omega-3 and olive oil. Avoid processed food, added sugars, alcohol, and trans fats. So some of the foods, like if we see, some of the functional practitioners, they pharmacy, whatever is coming from the earth, consume it. So whatever is planted is in here is coming from rooted from the earth. That is beneficial for your body. Whatever box it, no. So avoid the box and lean to the produce. For example, ground flax seeds, chia seeds, blueberries, kefir, green tea, and banana, quinoa, chickpeas, spinach, cabbage, carrots, avocado, tahini dressings. And you see all of this in Mediterranean diet. Baked salmon, steamed broccoli, sweet potatoes, garlic herb, olive oil drizzle, plain yogurt with cinnamon. Don't buy it with the flavor, add the flavor. You bring it plain Greek yogurt, and season it with natural products. Chopped walnuts, and that is all include the natural, like the fiber, omega-3, prebiotic, polyphenols, antioxidants, prebiotic fiber, plant protein, polyphenols, magnesium, fiber, probiotics, good fats, natural probiotics, omega-3, vitamin C, potassium, flavonoids, probiotics, calcium, anti-inflammatory fats, and olive oil is highly recommended, and you see it in highly consumed in the Mediterranean diet. So, for example, Lactobacillus plantarum, this is some strains, 299V, for example, reduce blood pressure and systemic inflammation. So Lactobacillus rhamnosus is that like GG strain improves gut gut barrier function and reduces anxiety. That's which trigger stress linked to cardiovascular events. Let us see another strain, ROO52, support the blood pressure regulation and mood balance. So if we understand that what is strain and what is the target of its intervention and change of the cellular behavior and communication, we can understand what is strain and where it can find it, can it attain, what is the dosage. With the natural, like natural products like the produce, it's the more you eat of it, so the more it's getting into your body. So gut vascular interaction, it is based on the short chain fatty acids, butyrate, and that's why we say the strains of these bacteria, Akkermansia, Lactobacillus, and Bifidum bacterium. So that can give us this mechanism of like butyrate and propionate. Gut barrier integrity will decrease the endotoxemia, and this is greatly correlated with the gut lining permeability or leaky gut, and that has increased the lipopolysaccharides, endothelial rupture, and the arthrosclerosis. Systemic inflammation like C-reactive protein interleukin 6 and tumor necrosis factor alpha. Vascular inflammation and oxidative stress, endothelial function, increase the collagen and elastin synthesis, support for arterial healing. Anyway, so here, a diverse and healthy gut microbiota, less inflammation, stronger vessels, and better healing potential. So SCFAs, that is produced by the good bacteria, directly impact vascular tone and immune response. Gut dysfunction, leaky gut dysbiosis may contribute to connective tissue degradation and vascular wall vulnerability. Oxidative stress leading to imbalance between reactive oxygen species and the body ability to detoxify them using antioxidants. ROS are byproducts of normal cellular metabolism. Excess ROS damage protein, lipid, DNA, and connective tissue. In blood vessels, oxidative stress leads to endothelial dysfunction, inflammation, and matrix degradation. ROS can damage collagen and elastin fibers in the media of the arterial wall. Oxidative stress may activate matrix metaboloproteinases, MMPs enzymes that degrade extracellular matrix, increasing the risk of dissections or hematoma formation. So, endothelial dysfunction, oxidative stress reduce nitric oxide bioavailability, impairing vasodilation, damage endothelium in more vulnerable to mechanical stress, which is a key trigger in cardiac events during exercise, emotional stress, or childbirth. Nitric oxide is playing a huge role in hair growth, and if there is an oxidative stress, it leads to joint inflammation and rupture as well of the and the nothing here increases joint inflammation. Yes. Yeah, it's a lot. If we understand how the interpersonal relationships and the behavior from a molecular level, everyone is gonna say, how does it serve me? So if it doesn't serve you in a good way, so why keep repeating it unless there is something suspicious about it? So so oxidative stress enhances and release pro-inflammatory cytokines. It can lead further to damage to vessel integrity, especially in patients with connective tissue or autoimmune conditions. And when you see, so you have to understand that you have a life and you have a responsibility with this life. If we're not taking it seriously, so don't blame anyone. Lifestyle and diet and targeted antioxidant support may play a supportive role in reducing cardiac events or preventing cardiac events. Nutrient therapy plan for reducing oxidative stress. This can focus on antioxidant defense, vascular repair, and inflammation control, especially after cardiac event. So, what you need to control and mitigate, and that with lifestyle interventions. Majority are lifestyle interventions. I said like a 55 is genetic and environmental, 45 is lifestyle. 45%. That's not easy. We consider 10% is huge. Now it's 45. Wow. And pay attention how would you like your day to go? How would you like? How you feel? What you're hoping, and what good things would you like to infuse into your life? You have to ask. You have to ask. You have to be your own investigator. Be your own detective. Be your own teacher. It's a lot to take in, and Part of the antioxidants and like part of the antioxidant rich herbs and spices like I said, turmeric, green tea, garlic, rosemary, ginger, cinnamon, oregano, sage, cloves, black pepper or pepperine. So this is one of the practitioners mentioned that put cinnamon in your salad. So this is wow, is it? I can put garlic, I can put like onion, I can put olive oil, but cinnamon, they said, yeah, put it and try how it's gonna improve your mood. For the micronutrients essentials for vascular health: magnesium, calcium, potassium, vitamin C, vitamin E, vitamin D, vitamin B6, B12, and folate, zinc, copper, selenium, and omega 3 fatty acids. And you have to have this vitamin, mineral, electrolytes panel to understand what your body needs and try to stick to a natural sources. If you are in a stage that the natural sources that not the absorption is so ask for the alternatives. Is it IV? Is it what type of it? What type of intervention could be? Not to take, always consult with your practitioner before starting any supplement, especially if you have underlying condition or take medications. Supplements should complement, not replace nutrient dense diet. So supplement shouldn't replace the natural diet. Hydration and regular physical activity further support vascular health. Make like a grocery shopping list for vessel health meal plan, vegetables and greens. So understand that your neurovascular health grocery list based on your condition and if you are having taking medications. So another thing you have to understand: are you vegetarian, vegan? What type or scleroterian or omnivore, allergies or intolerance to any nuts, dairy, gluten, or any allergies exist. Your diet, what is the goal from it? Weight management or weight loss, low sodium, low carb, or other health goals. Would you prefer quicker recipes or are you okay with longer cooking? Longer cooking as well is associated with mood regulation and therapeutic intervention because your neuron has a complete different perceptual experience in changing the electrobiochemical signaling. It brings good memories. It infuse like the good things for the wandering mind that is reducing stress. Understand what phytonutrients you would like to could be a benefit of you act as an antioxidants, anti-inflammatory agents, cell signaling molecules that can protect the body and improve the neurovascular health. For the phytonutrients that focus flavonoids, carotenoids, polyphenols, glucosinolates, ligane, saponin, and resveratrol. Antioxidant activity neutralize free radicals that cause oxidative damage to blood vessels. Anti-inflammatory effect lower chronic vascular inflammation, a driver of atherosclerosis and vascular energy. Improve endothelial function, enhance nitric oxide availability, promoting vasodilation and healthy blood flow. Inhibit the platelet aggregation, reduce risk of blood clots, support the detoxification, and to the two, like I mentioned, like here, two main organs that detoxify is your liver and your brain, and the most essential to pay attention for detoxification is the liver. If you understand the role of the liver, it can be a key shift in metabolic health. Inhibit the platelet aggregation, reduce risk of blood clots, support the detoxification, help clear toxins that your brain detoxify through sleep and lymphatic system activation. That macrophages, can contribute to vascular damage. So this is just another like contribution to the series of aggression, and its a correlation with uh, um, coronary heart disease, neurovascular health, what is happening and how the rupture is occurring, what factors, master players, main players, and sub players are in place, how to understand this holistic or integrative approach, the role of some strains of bacteria as the early intervention and strengthening the gut barrier integrity and the vessel walls, and the role of phytonutrients and micronutrients in improving the vascular health, the reducing of inflammation, and maintaining the integrity of neurovascular vessels. This is part. I have the DNA methylation, but however, I have presented now a sufficient amount of a understanding how our emotions, especially aggression, with its all manifestation in life and its role, motive, intentions, and look for the beneficiary and what do you want? What do you want? You are responsible for your life. You are responsible for your life, no one else. So this is a gift that God has given to you freely. He didn't ask you for anything but to rejoice, give thanks, and do righteously. I understand we fall short, but we are learning in progress. We are work in progress, and whatever societal, whatever. If anything that doesn't align with the will of God, you have to question yourself: is this from God or is this the world? So you have to question, this is how it impact your health and has it impact your state of disease, how it is developed over time. It is not today or yesterday. It takes decades, and there are multi-factors a lot, just like your body doesn't take permission. It's like perception, it happened 24/7. So yeah, I hope this today, the connection with coronary artery disease and cardiac events, and how aggression interplay in that from a neuroendocrinology and neurovascular, and your the good bacteria, how to increase the good bacteria, how what type of micronutrients and phytonutrients the body needs. But you have to ask your practitioner exactly where you are at. And this is brings that another piece of the puzzle, the communication and the positive communication and shaping your part, and the practitioner patient communication or relationship. So everything is interpersonal. If there's language barriers, if it is level of education barrier, if it is level of cultural barrier or socioeconomic barriers, and so that what practitioners are being in, in training for the social determinant of health, how they impact health and disease, to tailor intervention appropriately and understand the human medicine approach. And that is presenting the value of service, and not only a quantitative outcome of a procedure or encounter. So I don't know. I hope somebody will benefit from this. I hope it is reaching somebody that can take a piece, another piece of our of understanding the human behavior on from psychoneuroimmunology, behavioral neuroscience, neuroendocrinology, and neurovascular level on the molecular and cellular mechanisms, and how they project by the end in the diagnosis in lifespan, health span, and the quality of life. And make your choice. Make your choice. You are the investigator. You are the owner of what you want for your life and what you would like to modify. Be a participant. Be active, not not passive. You know, like take responsibility in the decision of the choices, because you can. You are learning, even you are not fully understanding what's going on. Take one step. Take one step, one small step at a time, and you're gonna build up. I have been in this journey 15 years and I'm still trying to understand, but I would like to um, bring awareness into the subject of vulnerability and how it takes place and role play in health and disease, and understand what is the aggressor and perpetrator may look like, may seem like, and the outcome, that is what you reap, the outcomes. And I hope we alleviate suffering one day, and we started to care for the human subject from early age. You are fearfully and wonderfully made. Peace.